Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Skilled Immigrants Journey, Tips for Professional Success. This webinar is brought to you by New Canadians, which is a national TV show and web series for newcomers to Canada. And if you're in Canada, you can watch us every week on Omni Television. Or if you prefer online, you can watch us anytime from anywhere on our website, newcanadians.tv, as well as on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/newcanadians. This webinar is sponsored by Windmill Microlending, which is Canada's largest microlending not-for-profit for skilled immigrants and refugees. Windmill addresses underemployment of skilled immigrants, newcomers across Canada, and offers low-interest, affordable loans to pay for credentials, licensing, retraining, or professional development. My name is Gerard Kalejian, and I'm delighted to welcome to introduce tonight's presenter, Onai Abote, strategic content specialist and at Windmill Microlending, to talk about this important topic. Welcome, Onai, to our webinar. You are on mute, Onai.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you for having us, and thank you to everybody who's joined in this evening.
Our pleasure. Onai, as you know, and as most newcomers to Canada know, that moving to a new country is challenging, and usually also it comes with expectations. And I'm happy that you're joining us tonight to take a look at these expectations and the realities the skilled newcomers face after moving to Canada, and also to give many tips to help them address those challenges and move forward in their life, in their careers here in Canada. So I'm sure all the viewers who have joined us from Canada and also even from overseas, from Peru and other countries, are looking forward to all the tips you will be giving. So over to you, Onai.
Well, thanks again. Well, I'm really excited to be sharing these tips, and obviously, as some people might realize, I am also an immigrant to Canada. So I've only been here this is my 5th year. So I still consider myself a newcomer. And so some of the things that I'm going to be speaking about tonight are things that I have lived personally, or experiences that have been shared with me from friends, family, and also from experiences that some of our clients from Windmill Microlending actually experience themselves. So I'm going to share my screen, and so Gerard, just confirm you can see the full screen with my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just minimize everything.
I should remind you before you start, Onai, as well, that viewers who have questions during the presentation, they can type in the Q&A tab on Zoom or in the chat on YouTube, and I'll pass them to you to give all the answers.
Yes, so that's a great point. So yeah, as I go through the presentation, I will at the end have a question and answer segment. So Gerard and I will be answering questions, but so that you don't forget your questions, please feel free to type them as I go along the presentation. So as Gerard rightfully said, I'm going to be speaking about a skilled immigrant's journey and offering tips to professional success. My name is Onai Petra Abote, and I am a strategic content specialist with Windmill Microlending. So for those in Canada, I want to say welcome to Canada, and that we are so glad that you are here. Over the next 3 years, so from 2021 and the 3 years after, Canada will welcome over 400,000 immigrants annually. This is a number that was given by the federal government late last year, and that is the plan. They want to welcome, so within 3 years, about 1.2 million immigrants. So why are they, inviting such a large number of immigrants into the country? It's simple. Canada does need immigrants to fill labor shortages. And so today we're going to be talking about what happens once that immigrant arrives in Canada and hopefully plans to settle and prosper in the country. And to do that, I would like to invite each of you to use the chat function to answer the following question. So what are some of the expectations you had when you came to Canada? I'll just give everybody, say, a minute for people to enter their responses. I'm looking at my watch so that I stick to my own time. So 1 minute. What are some of the expectations you had when you came to Canada? Or what are some of the expectations you have before you come to Canada? So what do you expect Canada to be like, to offer you? Gerard, I can't see the chat function because I am looking at my other screen. Do we have any?
One viewer one of the viewers is saying that the expectation was making lots of money.
Yes.
So I guess we all have that expectation.
I totally resonate with that one. For me, that was also a big one because I come from a country where inflation is just out of this world. So when I came to Canada, yes, I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be able to buy myself, property, or use some of the money to invest, that sort of thing, buy a car, buy a house. So yeah, I had all of those plans too.
Yeah.
So I will move along to my next slide because of time. So so I'm sure some of the expectations you might have had or have would be to get a job that matches your education and skill level. What do I mean by that? If I was working, for example, as a dentist in Zimbabwe, where I come from, I would have expected, or I would expect that when I come to Canada, I will be able to do just that, work in my field, or if I choose to change another profession, and I would expect that that process would go smoothly, right? I wouldn't imagine that it would be such a mammoth task. Some of the other expectations are live comfortably, buy a house, a car, things, luxury things like that, or necessity things like that. I would also, or I also expected that I would be able to support family back home, or extended family in the home country. And by this I mean that I know in an African setting, I just don't take care of my own family. I'm also responsible for extended family members. So, immigrating to Canada, my expectation was I would be totally able to support those individuals and those families. So, as part of my presentation, I'm going to incorporate storytelling. And the first person that I want to introduce to you is called Alexandra. So, Alexandra immigrated from Colombia in 2011. She had 18 years of experience as a dentist in Colombia. And when she came to Canada, she ended up working as an office cleaner in Ontario. So this is just an introduction. So I've told you that this person is called Alexandra. She came to Canada in 2011 with 18 years experience as a dentist. And then she now finds herself working as an office cleaner in Ontario. This is an actual person, and I will come back to her as I go along in my presentation. Everything will make sense. Just sit tight. So we've spoken about the expectations, right, of immigrating to Canada, what we as immigrants expect. But as some of you may know, the reality on the ground in most cases is different, right? When I came, I personally had worked as a journalist back home. I was working for Thomson Reuters Foundation. I had a very good job. So when I came to Canada, my hope and expectation was to work as a journalist in Canada, but that did not happen. My first job was actually at a homeless shelter. And whilst I cherished that experience, it allowed me to see another aspect of challenges people face, such as homelessness. But I didn't expect that, having gone to journalism school, that I would have found myself working in a place like that. And by that I mean I was obviously working in underemployment. So that is the reality that most skilled immigrants face, where they come to Canada with years of experience in their field, with post-secondary education, so from degrees, diplomas to masters to PhDs, and then they end up working in survival jobs instead of the jobs that match their education and skill. So that's why I have images of, a taxi, someone wearing a security vest, people shoveling snow, because that's also another reality, right? Adapting to environmental changes such as extreme winters and temperatures. I've also listed high cost of living as a reality, because depending on where people are from, sometimes bills back home or food and things like that are cheaper. And then you come to Canada and then you realize that the cost of living is on the higher scale. And another reality is, because in our home countries, I want to imagine that all of you who are listening or watching me right now are as lucky as I was back home in Zimbabwe. African communities are so big on living life as a community. So you share everything, right? You're sharing resources, you're sharing problems, you're sharing successes. So that kind of eliminates the burden of stress. So coming to Canada and then removing all of that, so remove my African community, remove that camaraderie, remove that support. People sometimes find themselves, as they're adjusting to the new country, they find themselves experiencing a decline of emotional and physical well-being as a result of stress. But this is a reality that, because we are in Canada, there are plenty of resources and support for people in those kind of situations. So I would encourage you that if you're experiencing stress, or you feel like your mental health is declining, please do not hesitate to seek support through settlement agencies or your local health administration. So now that we've spoken about what the expectations are, we've looked at the realities, what can be done? So in most cases, and I've said that people who immigrate to Canada often come with some form of education, right? So maybe they finished high school and acquired a variety of qualifications. So what do skilled immigrants need in order to get ahead once in Canada? So that varies, right? It varies from individual to individual. It varies from profession to profession. But what I have here are just some of the most common things that would allow an immigrant to succeed in Canada. And the very first thing that I have here is an assessment of credentials. That should read assessment credentials, not assessment course. My apologies for that. And assessment of credentials means that whatever documents that you have brought, credential documents, so your transcripts, things like that, your diplomas, your certificates, would need to be assessed by a Canadian body so that they are able to equate it to a Canadian standard. So that would be what I would imagine would be everybody's first step to do it once they get in Canada. And then some people might need or might face the need to license. So this applies to people in regulated professions. Regulated professions in Canada include, for example, people working in the health sector. So your doctors, your nurses, teachers, accountants, all of those professionals are working in a regulated field. So they would need certification or licensing from the regulatory body that would enable them to work in their profession in Canada. So that's another thing that might be needed before you even start working in Canada. And then on top of that, again, depending on individual to individual and depending on your profession, your industry, some people might need to do additional training and education. So this would vary, but obviously this might mean committing and it varies a couple of weeks, months, years, in order to advance further your studies. And then another big thing is mentorship. Can you imagine coming to a new country? You don't have a network, people of maybe the same age in your industry, or people from an older generation in your industry who would have experience. So mentorship allows skilled immigrants or newcomers in Canada to tap into that resource, right? So through mentorship, you can get tips about labor market trends. Your mentor can introduce you to their network, so that way you can find out what the hiring trends are for your industry. You might get job opportunities through mentorship. So the benefits for mentorship are endless. So that's another thing that skilled immigrants might need to get ahead. And then, of course, professional development and continuing education courses. I would imagine that we don't stop learning once we graduate or finish whatever it is that we wanted to pursue from the educational aspect. But learning is continuous, and to be relevant in a market or in an industry, it's imperative that you keep abreast with the industry trends. So that might mean you might need to continually be learning, especially now that due to the pandemic, a lot of things are happening online. We have to keep learning about the programs that people are using. We need to keep learning about technology and things like that. So I know I've been talking a lot about all of these things, but I actually have not explained what it is that Windmill Microlending does. So as Gerard had said, Windmill Microlending is Canada's largest and most successful microlending charity for skilled immigrants and refugees. So what is it that we do? We provide microloans of up to $15,000 to skilled immigrants so that they can use the loan to pay for any Canadian licensing or training that they need to restart or advance a career in Canada. And I just want to take you back to the things that I said immigrants might need. So some of those things would need to be paid for, and some of them are actually pretty expensive, even including the professional development, the upskilling, the licensing, the credential assessments itself. Everything would need to be paid for. So when someone comes to Canada and they're lacking that resource, so they don't have the funding, or in some cases they do, but they want to save the money that they brought from back home, then they would be able to borrow from us. I'll also hasten to say that in most cases, because people are new to the country, they might not qualify for a student line of credit from an established financial institution such as a bank, or might not qualify for government aid programs. Then we would become an option to help people pay for what we call a success plan to get them into working and prospering in Canada. So at this point, I'm now going to go into the tips that I have prepared for you. So tips to achieve career success in Canada. I will have some information that I will be sharing with you through the chat function. So please keep an eye out on the chat as well. So what would be the first step that someone would do to succeed in Canada? Preparation and expert advice. There is no telling that before you do anything, you need to do your research. So you research the country you're going to, you research the province you're going to be staying in, you research the city, your neighborhood, if you have a family, the schools where your children are going to go. You research industry trends in your profession. this immigrating and moving to Canada and settling in Canada involves a lot of research. So I hope that all of you will be able to quickly put your research hat on and dive right in. So this involves also carefully planning, as an essential step for success, and then accessing career and settlement counseling at your earliest. So preferably before you come to Canada, there are some pre-arrival programs that are available. So you could Google, pre-arrival programs, or once you're in Canada, you can actually go to some of the settlement agencies in the city that you choose to live, and they will be able to offer you career and settlement counseling. This step is critical because it will expose you to a number of things, right? Especially with the career aspect, it will expose you to what you need to do in order, if you want to go back into your career, they will give you the steps that you would need. So delaying this step would only mean that the process for you getting back into the career you want or a new career would be longer. I have a quote here from Musenga. So he's a Windmill career success coach. So as part of our program, we have career success coaches who go through a client's or potential client's success, what we call a success plan, to just make sure that what the client wants to pursue in Canada is feasible, that the client has what it takes to achieve it, that it's realistic, and that it fits within the stipulated time frame. So we allow our clients to borrow money to use for a program that is a maximum of 2 years. So on the preparation tip number 1, Musenga says skilled immigrants, especially those whose career success plans are not directed by a career advisor or regulatory body, have difficulties pinpointing the right mix of courses that will make them employable. So again, research, and making sure that you really, really grasp what it is that you need to do and the steps that you need to follow. Think it through and make a plan is the second tip. So what does that mean? This means budgeting for life before and during a learning plan. So if someone is thinking of going back to school, then this is where they're thinking about what that will look like, right? Consider, if you go to school, are you working full time? Are you not? Are you working part time? How will that look from a financial aspect for your household as well? And factor in setbacks such as the pandemic. I think last year, this time, I didn't think that the world would take such a turn, but here we are, working from home for actually a year now, and things at some point actually coming to a standstill. So plan for setbacks such as that whilst you're thinking through and making your career success plan. And then this is something that is dear to my heart: avoid a hoarder mentality. I know that I have spoken about sometimes people needing an extra education credential to get ahead, but this is not always the case. So you really need to think this through, or else you just end up getting degree after degree, certificate after certificate that you might not actually need. So you need to pause and think, do I really need this educational credential or not? So, and more education does not always equal a better opportunity. Sometimes it could be upskilling, taking a continuing education course, or joining a professional association instead. So really, really think this one through, but certainly do avoid the hoarder mentality. And then if someone does think of going back to school and would require financial assistance, that you still need to think that through. And you also know when would be the best time, if you need one, to seek out a loan. Are there any grants or bursary options available which don't require repayment? So you would need to consider that. During periods of emotional family upheaval, that might not be the best chance to seek for a loan. And then before learning plan is finalized, when financial situation is too precarious, all of these need to be considered. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I was speaking about working from home, so one little one needed my attention. Sorry about that. And then the next point would be tip number 5. Know when a loan is the right choice. So why would someone consider getting an educational loan as a newcomer in Canada? It's very simple. You can use that loan to build or improve your Canadian credit history, which is another essential thing that newcomers need to familiarize themselves with. You come to Canada and then you're constantly told about credit history or credit. So you also might need to do a bit of financial literacy programs so that you familiarize and you understand what that means. So sometimes the right time for a loan is when your finances are stable and your household budget is in place, when major life changes are not expected also. So you're not expecting to travel, around the world, or you're not expecting to buy a house, so you don't need a large down payment and things like that. So always look at your situation, and then decide for yourself when the right time is. And also research into accessing grants, as I'd said earlier, and bursaries, social assistance that may be available to you, because sometimes especially grants, bursary, and scholarships is money awarded to you that you would not need to pay back. And we have a Windmill loan recipient who said, I was able to complete 6 courses and get my certification in 3 months flat. I also got a temp job for 2 months in the first week after I got my certification as a certified property manager. And then the other thing that I think is very important in Canada is networking. I know I mentioned mentorship, but I feel like these go hand in hand. So connect and nurture your network. And your network is people in your industry. Your network could be people in your, if you do hobbies in your in that group. So find peer groups with people who have a I can do attitude, and also find mentors. Attend networking events to expand your sphere of influence. In most cases, and I know a lot of people think that you get hired because of what you know, right? Because I have my degree, so this is what I know. But sometimes you're actually hired because of who you know. So knowing people in your network and allowing yourself to be open to new ideas, open to new ways of doing things, would set you up for success. And in Canada, and I know in Canada, networking is a really, really huge thing. I have been able to tap into my mentor's resources and her networks as well. So I would encourage you all to really look and consider mentorship and networking in your journey. Be adaptable. You know what? I know a lot of people might say, I'm used to doing things a certain way. This is how we used to do it back home, or this is how we do it in our industry. So whilst that might be true, so the principles and the way of doing things in your profession may be the same globally, you will find that within the Canadian workplace, things might be different. So in order to blend in, you need to learn things like basic workplace culture, business, and social etiquette. And then another thing that is big in Canada is adapting and using your soft skills. So unlike, I come from a very academic background where we are very academic, and then things like communication, um, um, team, being a team player and things like that might fall through the cracks. So having your top skills polished, or setting up time to really delve on your communication, your leadership skills, being a team player, negotiating and conflict resolution, ability to work under pressure and time management, fine tuning those skills will definitely set you up for success with any team. And then the last thing that I have, and this also ties in with the mental health aspect that I was speaking about, is finding a good work-life balance. I know as immigrants, we're trying to make things work. So you're working maybe long shifts. Take time, even if that is the case, take time to take care of yourself. So take time to do whatever relaxes or rejuvenates you. And I know this could be difficult, especially with the long winters that we experience, but I would encourage you all to think outside the box and try new things as well. If you do need mental health or stress support, please contact your local. I know in Alberta, in Calgary, we have 311. So depending on which province you are in, you could look up what your local resource number is and dialing it and being able to access. They'll make you get access to referral programs and professional services. And then lastly, try out Canadian leisure sports. I mean, you might as well. This winter, I never imagined that I would actually go on my first winter hike, but I did. It was a balmy minus 30 something degrees, but we did a 5 kilometer hike in the mountains, and we actually thoroughly enjoyed it at the end of the day. So I would encourage each of you to consider thinking outside of the box, stepping out of your comfort zone, and then trying out new Canadian things. So I did speak about Alexandra, right? So Alexandra was the dentist, for those of you who may have joined later. I introduced Alexandra. She's a dentist from Colombia. She had 18 years of experience working as a dentist in Colombia. And when she came to Canada, she ended up working as an office cleaner. So you might be wondering, so why did I introduce that person? Why is she relevant to this topic? And it's very simple. A lot of immigrants find themselves in underemployment. And I know Gerard had mentioned that Windmill Microlending actually endeavors to move skilled immigrants from underemployment. So Alexandra had her credentials verified, and she had to write a number of exams to eventually qualify as a dentist in Canada. And this ties into what I had said earlier with people working in regulated professions. So this is a very good example. So although she had 18 years working as a dentist in Colombia, she couldn't immediately work as a dentist in Canada because her profession is regulated. And she needed to write a number of exams before she could start practicing. And those exams usually are, in the thousands of dollars. And I know dentists and internationally trained dentists need at least 45,000 approximately to be able to recertify like all the exams and all of that. So a friend told her about Windmill Microlending, which is us. Told her about our microloan program, and she accessed the loan to pay for all the exams. So she was able to borrow the money that she needed to pay for all the exams that she needed to take. And in December 2016, she took the board exam and passed. She received the license to practice in February 2017, and today, true story, today she works as a dentist in 2 different practices in Oshawa and Brampton, Ontario. So this ties in with our impact. On average, remember I said a lot of our clients fall into underemployment. So the same way Alexandra was finding herself working as an office cleaner, she was probably earning way less than what she would be earning now as a practicing dentist. So by the end of completing a success plan, the bulk of our clients usually triple their income. And whilst we see a very short number of people fail to pay back the loan, I mean, that's just 3%. 97% make their loan payments on time, and 97% of our clients repay the loan in full. To date, we have disbursed over $36 million in loans, and we have supported over 5,000 skilled immigrants in Canada. So remember, I did say that I have resources for you. I will be putting in links. So one of those resources is, I know I spoke about a number of topics, but what we have is a skilled immigrant career success guide. So what is this? This is a step-by-step roadmap to help you on your professional journey. And these are in the form of articles. So for example, you could get an article that would be talking about getting back into your professional field in Canada, requiring a loan. One of the other topics is strategies for resumes and cover letters, because that is different from country to country. So you come to Canada, you also have to adjust things like your resume and your cover letters, how to ace a Zoom job interview in a pandemic. So all of these articles are available for you. So I would encourage you to check these articles out, and then get in touch with us, and we'll be waiting to help you succeed and reach your career success in Canada. So I'm going to go ahead and put the links in the chat function. And at this point, I will be taking some questions. So feel free to ask questions, and then either Gerard and I will be able to respond or direct you to where we will be able to get the information from.
We will be sharing, Onai, just to add to your point as well, we will be sharing all the resources and the links in a follow-up communication with everyone who has registered or has joined us through Zoom. So keep an eye on an email as well in the next couple of days. And we're having the questions already coming in. So Onai, one of the questions is if you consider getting a college degree is better than getting a master or a PhD degree when starting in Canada?
This is I would say this is a tough question without knowing what the industry the person is from, right? So I would say it would depend on what your industry is. So one way of doing it is looking at I know the Alberta government has a website that they call Alice. So you put in your profession, right, to say I work in this field, and it will tell you what qualifications you have. So I think doing research like that would be able to guide you, because sometimes you don't need to go back to school to get a PhD, because maybe all they need for that profession is a bachelor degree, or maybe what they need for that profession is a designation, right? So it's all dependent on your industry specifications and the job that you want to do. But I know for people in academics, maybe getting a PhD would be in your best interest. But I hasten to say that it's dependent on the industry, and it's dependent on what your career goals at the end of the day are. And it's also dependent on what your research says. So research, go on the Alberta websites. Also check some settlement agencies. They might be able to also guide you through their programs.
Yeah, that's one mistake many newcomers make, just kind of getting higher degrees when sometimes they don't actually need it. And
exactly.
It's a waste of time and other
money.
resources as well. Yes.
Yeah, because they cost a lot of money.
Yes, they cost money, they cost time, and and in some cases they don't need it. Onai, another question is, do you have any recommendations for looking for a remote job, working remotely? And the person who's asking, Vanessa, she's a TV and film producer from Belleville, Ontario.
Thank you for your question, Vanessa. I do for your industry, because you're in the film and TV industry. I would say you're in a great province in Ontario, because a lot of filming happens in Ontario, Quebec, BC. I think those to end Alberta sometimes. So I would recommend that you join in Alberta. They do have a union. So maybe joining a union with in the three different provinces that are big on film. And then that way you'll be able to tap into any upcoming productions, and they will be able to have you listed as a member as well to represent you. So I would say join a union, and then joining also various platforms, journalistic platforms and programs. I know New Canadian Media have a forum, or have a membership that they offer with benefits. So if you sign up, you could maybe get diaries and things like that. So I would say consider those things, and also keeping your eyes on social media. Social media is a big thing. You get story leads from social media. You get to meet people in your industry through social media. So I would also recommend those.
And now with more people working from home or working remotely, there are much more opportunities than we had before, prior to the pandemic.
Yep.
And even people living in smaller or medium-sized communities such as Belleville, Ontario, can work for companies in other cities in Canada without even physically being there. And the film industry, media, journalism, they offer lots of opportunities in that area.
Mm-hmm.
One other question is about your own immigration experience, Onai. If you can say or remember, what was the most helpful piece of advice that someone gave you in Canada?
Thank you, Claudia, for the question. I think it was my cousin telling me that I can absolutely achieve anything that I want to in Canada, despite because I come from a patriarchal society, right? So women sometimes, are told you can't do this or you can't achieve this. And when I came to Canada, I was a bit hesitant about pursuing certain things in my career, or taking leaps of faith. But my cousin would push me and say, you know what, you can do absolutely anything. And it's proven to be true. It seems, opportunities are abound in Canada, and all you have to do is try. Sometimes not everything works out, but you lose if you do not try at all. So I think that would be it.
Well, definitely very good advice, and very helpful as well. So moving on to another question by Pablo, and he's asking about regarding Canadian education and past work experience. What would you do differently if you were able to travel back in time?
That's a good question. What would I do, like education wise? I
and
wouldn't.
Work experience.
Yeah, I always wanted to work in communication. So working with, like, studying the arts and journalism, like I wouldn't change that at all. But I do know that one thing I would do if I could go back in time was um, enlarge my network. That I would definitely do for sure, because when I was working in Zimbabwe, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of people, but I didn't tap, or I didn't nurture those relationships, right? And some of the people now I encounter here in Canada, but we're having to pick off those relationships where I could have done that over the last couple of 10 years. So I think if I'm to do one thing, I would definitely nurture the professional relationships that I had with colleagues, people in my industry, especially people from an older generation, and I would have been able to learn more from their past experiences, especially. So that's one thing that I would do. But in terms of my choice of study, I wouldn't have changed that. Maybe I would have aimed higher to come to Canada maybe already possessing a master's degree, maybe I could have just done maybe a couple of, like 1 year or 2 more years in school. But other than that, that would be it.
Similarly, I wouldn't. If I go back as well, I just completed 10 years in Canada, and again, I wouldn't change. Just that I would be prepared in the right way, do the right research, and platforms such as New Canadians and organizations such as Windmill are helping the newcomers of today to be better prepared, better plan for their Canadian journey. And if any of the viewers have any more questions, feel free to type in, and Onai is here and myself as well to answer your questions. And another question is just arrived. So based on your experience, Onai, what would be your best tips to find a mentor as a newcomer to Canada?
I like
you spoke about
question.
mentorship. Yeah, you spoke about the mentorship, and Pablo is asking about that.
I think there are two approaches. I've had people on LinkedIn message me out of the blue, but these are people, obviously, I'm in Calgary, Alberta. So these are people in Calgary who maybe have seen me at an event, and then they search me up on LinkedIn. They say, thank you, and I also attended this event that you spoke to. Can we connect? And sometimes I have accepted those requests. So maybe doing like a cold approach like that. But the most effective way would be to join programs that actually focus on mentorship. And so for Windmill clients, they are at a benefit because when someone becomes a Windmill client, automatically they're enrolled into our mentorship program. And our mentors are also past Windmill clients. So it's a Windmill alumni now mentoring a newcomer to Canada who's probably following the same steps in the same profession that they are in as well. So looking for programs like ours, or programs offered by other settlement agencies that focus on mentorship, because that will be all they do. So they will assess your needs, so what your profession is, what you want to achieve in Canada, and then pair you up with the right mentor. So I would say cold approaches, yes, but with caution as well, because not everybody has the right intentions. So cautiously approaching people, verified people on social media, especially LinkedIn, and then joining mentorship programs such as Windmill Microlending's mentorship program available to clients, or other mentorship programs available by settlement agencies across the country in Canada.
What a beautiful service, by the way, that it's not just a loan, but you go beyond offering a microloan by helping your clients and your alumni with through this mentorship program as well, to advance their careers and grow their networks. Another question, Onai, is about volunteering this time, not volunteering for newcomers. And the question is, would you encourage newcomers to volunteer in the community? And are there benefits that volunteering can provide that can help them with their careers?
Absolutely. And I didn't speak about newcomers trying to get into the workplace in Canada, because what happens in most cases is people are passed over job opportunities because they're told that they do not have what is called Canadian work experience. So volunteering allows a newcomer to have that experience within a Canadian workplace. So I definitely would encourage people to volunteer, and you don't have to volunteer in for example, in the profession that you are accustomed to. You could volunteer in something completely different, but what you're getting out of it is you're sharpening. Remember, I spoke about soft skills. So volunteering allows you to sharpen your soft skills, to work in a team, to resolve conflict, time management. You show up on time, even though you're not getting paid. You show up on time. You do the work as if you're getting paid. And volunteering also ensures that when you're now looking for a job in Canada, in your field or in your profession, you have that experience on your resume. And the people whom you are volunteering for can actually pause as an employer referral, right? Because every job recruiter or the person who's going to hire you would want to a referral from someone. So your volunteer experience can be that. And volunteering is really, really beneficial because it also allows you to increase your network. So you're able to network with other volunteers, you're able to tap into the staff at wherever you're volunteering to. And sometimes you might use that as a shadowing opportunity as well. I know one of our clients, she was a veterinarian in a home country, and her first job in Canada was working as a dog groomer. So I would imagine that although she was working in a position that was way below what she was accustomed to, she would have been, seeing how the vets in Canada are working, and then taking notes for her own professional development. And I must say that vet now owns her own her own veterinarian practices in Alberta. So she did get a loan from us, and she now works as a vet.
I'm glad, Onai, that you mentioned references, because many newcomers, they don't realize that when they apply for a job and employer they are applying or the company they are applying to asks for references, they need references in Canada that they can attest to their experience, right? At New Canadians, we get interns from a media bridging program, and I've been a reference for many of them. And when the employer calls, I do really have lots of things to say because they worked with me, so I can tell stories, projects they worked on, or things they did, and that increases significantly their chances of getting that job, right? So the point of the references are very important, and to your point as well of the profession, sometimes thinking a bit broadly, working in a different organization, but still in their field. For example, it can be a charity for seniors, for example, but you can still work as a communications person there, writing or so. That's why the point you mentioned, being flexible or adaptable as well, and think broadly is important. One other question, as we are kind of nearing the end of our webinar, is about your biggest challenge that you faced when you immigrated to Canada, or after you immigrated to Canada, and how did you overcome it?
I would say my biggest challenge was trying to get back into the media. And I think sometimes you have to try something in order for you to make a decision if it's a good fit or not. But when I did come to Canada, I was convinced that I needed to work as a journalist because that's all I had known. But penetrating that industry was very hard because obviously I knew nobody. But I was fortunate enough to get a job with the leading publishing company. And although the job was in another department, so completely, I wasn't working in the editorial, but how I overcame that barrier which prevented me from working in editorial was being, I don't want to say vulnerable, but being honest, right? So I did have a chat with my boss, and I told them that, you know what, I really enjoy the job that I'm doing here, but I'm actually eyeing an opportunity in editorial. And what ended up happening was I ended up freelancing for the same publishers whilst working in my department. So I didn't move jobs, but I was afforded the opportunity to freelance. So I think realizing what the challenge was, I had to realize what the challenge was, and I had to be honest enough with myself and with those around me, people whom I trusted, because it's also about trusting people and knowing the people that you're working with. So I was in a position where I could trust my boss to tell them about really what my plans were. And because we were such a good fit, they were able to actually help me realize that. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's very helpful advice as well. And so I'm sure the viewers who joined us today, this webinar, will benefit from all the tips you mentioned. And all the tips were really helpful, and I can see they come from experience as well, a lived experience. And I like the last tip as well of having work-life balance, finding the right work-life balance, because most newcomers, they are, as you mentioned, they are totally focused on getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing that, they ignore their mental health and their kind of well-being, and that doesn't work in their advantage, right? And we're fortunate in Canada that there's so many parks, nature, and so much nature around us that
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to spend money. Just on the weekend, you can go to your neighborhood park or a nearby park, for example. Just release kind of that stress and be re-energized for Monday to resume your job search and be very productive at your job search as well. So thank you, Onai, for
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Onai, for all these tips. We really appreciate, and the viewers of New Canadians as well, to know about the tips you gave to succeed in Canada, as well as how how Windmill microlending could help them succeed and advance in their careers in Canada through the microloans that you offer, that take off the pressure, the financial pressure on them while they are settling and kind of taking care of their careers. And it's easier to deal later with kind of the finances when they are successful and working in their professions. So thank you once again. And so this was our webinar for today, Skilled Immigrants Journey Tips for Professional Success. And our presenter was Onai Abote, Strategic Content Specialist at Windmill Microlending. And speaking about Windmill Microlending, we're thankful that they are sponsoring and presenting tonight's webinar. And Windmill Microlending is Canada's leading microlending charity for skilled immigrants and refugees. To know more about their microloans for newcomers, you can check out their website, windmillmicrolending.ca. To know more about such webinars and services offered by organizations such as Windmill Microlending, stay connected with us through our social media channels on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. And if you're also on the Telegram messaging app, we are there. You can subscribe to our channel and get notified whenever there are live sessions, webinars, and weekly panel discussions as well. And if you want to get the best of what New Canadians produces in your inbox every month, you can subscribe to our newsletter at newcanadians.tv/newsletter. At the end of this webinar, while you're exiting Zoom, there's a very short survey. Please take a minute and give us your feedback. It will help us improve such events in the future and create a better experience for all newcomers. And thank you once again to Onai, to Windmill Microlending, and to everyone who joined us from Canada, and those who are about to immigrate from overseas, who are interested in knowing more about the supports available by organizations such as Windmill Microlending. Thank you for joining us, and see you in another event.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you. And just one last thing, I did put in all the links. So a link to our website, our eligibility quiz, and the skilled immigrant guide as well. So thank you again, Gerard, for such an awesome time. And thanks everyone for joining in.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Onai. And just one final reminder as well, that all these links, if you didn't manage to get it now, or you kind of missed any of the links. We will share all these links, all the resources that Onai mentioned during her presentation in a follow-up communication to you. So keep an eye on your inbox in the next couple of days, and you'll get also a recording of this webinar to watch it again, and because there's so much valuable tips, and it might take some time to kind of digest all of it, and or share it with other interested people who are about to immigrate or who just landed in Canada, and you would help them, you would contribute to helping them in their journey and in making their journey a successful one. So have a good night, and see you in another webinar soon.
Thanks, everyone.